Hey, it's Osman with House Einstein, and in this video I'm going to tell you about one of the most overlooked aspects of real estate, the buyer's emotional journey. And if you're a seller, I can hear you thinking, well, why should I care about this? But I'm going to tell you why it has a massive impact on your real estate transaction, on the listing and sale of the home that you're marketing, and it's one of the most critical things that buyers and sellers should be thinking about. It's one of the most important things for realtors to be thinking about. Are you ready? Let's go. Okay, first thing first, the buyer's emotional roller coaster. When you are shopping for a home, you've made the decision to shop for a home, you've gotten your finances in order, you've figured out what your needs are, what neighborhoods work for you, what property types are right for you, and what fits your budget, and you're finally out there looking at houses. It's exciting, it's scary, the commitment financially is huge, and the transaction costs make that even harder. You can't quickly flip in and out of houses. These are big events in one's life. And we take that responsibility very seriously when we represent buyers and help them educate them on what they should be looking for when it comes to market conditions, property types, valuation, the whole nine yards. And let's say the buyer has finally found the right house and now we're writing an offer, and odds are there are other offers coming in. The most desirable houses tend to have lots of other offers, especially right now. Let's say you're lucky enough to get it, and you are notified by the listing agent that you've written a killer offer, they've accepted it, and it's time to celebrate. Your journey in home shopping is over. Well, not exactly. When the party's finally over, the panic sometimes sets in, and it really depends on the extent of due diligence and homework, research, and commitment that the buyer had. It's not uncommon for that buyer to get cold feet and want to exit the contract. This is why removing those contingencies can be so critical for a seller when they're looking at multiple offers. They're not just deciding what's the best price, they want the best contract with the highest probability of closing, and for good reason. So one of the simple things that agents can do is delay the time period as long as possible before they change the status of the listing on the MLS. Now there are a lot of things that listing agents and sellers can do. This is just an example of one small thing that most people and many offices in the real estate world don't do. And it's human nature to increase commitment as you spend more money and invest more time in the purchase process. And the money part is really interesting. Once you've paid for an inspection, once you've deposited your earnest money, it almost feels like you've bought it. Your commitment actually increases, not decreases, each step along the way. That's human nature. So delaying the status change actually gives the deal a little bit of time to settle, to season in the buyer's mind as they go and deposit that money. And it's a small thing, but they're ever so slightly less likely to terminate flippantly. It is not uncommon. In fact, I wish I could share the actual listing with you, but it's currently on the market. There's a listing right here in Boulder right now. Beautiful house, crazy frenzied bidding war. Buyer got it, was successful, and then just failed to deposit the earnest money. I mean, who knows what they wrote into the contract in terms of their performance and their contingencies, but the seller now has to go pursue the earnest money. Like, even if they had written in that they had exited all of their contingencies, they had removed all of their contingencies, they never deposited the money. So to go pursue it and try to get it out of that particular buyer is going to be quite the arduous journey for that seller, so they're probably not going to waste their time doing it. But that particular buyer tainted the listing. And that's the issue. When an MLS status changes from active, which is open to the whole market, it's new on the market, to under contract or pending, and then comes back to market quickly, the conclusion that many buyers reach is that something's wrong with the listing. not something was wrong with the first buyer. I can't tell you the number of times I've had this conversation with my buyers when they see a return to market listing. Hey Osmond, what's wrong with this house? The answer could be nothing is wrong with the house. Everything was wrong with that first buyer. But this is why sellers should really pay attention to this, because it will cost you tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars in certain markets when your listing is tainted by a buyer that got cold feet. Anything you can do, everything you can do to increase the probability of closing and avoid that scenario is things you should do. And it's stuff we carefully advise our sellers about. We also talk about it extensively with buyers as we're structuring offers to compete with multiple buyers in the market trying for the same property. So I hope that's been helpful for you. Remember to structure your contracts in line with the buyer's emotional journey. And if you're the listing agent and there's a mismatch between the emphatic nature that their agent is advocating for them and what they've actually written into the contract, you may want to think twice. And I'll talk about that in another episode on this channel. So please like and subscribe. And also, if you like this type of content, our goal is to give you the most accurate, honest information about market conditions and the real estate transaction process as possible. One of the ways we do that is our Fresh Listings newsletter. It's the only way we can communicate with you about actively marketed listings. That's just due to the rules that govern this industry. The list for our newsletter is not shared with anyone else. We put out a Fresh Listings newsletter pretty much every week, and we discuss the pros and cons of the latest listings to hit the market, and particularly focus on the ones we think are most desirable for you to go check out. I'll put a link in the bottom of this video for where you can sign up for that newsletter. I encourage you to do it. And as always, I welcome your comments. I'm Osmond with House Einstein, and I'm here to help you make a smarter real estate decision. Thanks for joining me.